We have to figure out a way to create that American dream again. I think it's crazy that we allow people in this country to bet $1,000 on Kalshi or on Polymarket, but you can't put $1,000 into a brand you believe in.
That's insane.
It's crazy. These people are acting like owners, but they're not. The growth is already gone.
The $1.8 trillion valuation.
We have to figure out a way to create that American dream again.
What's the catch? It almost sounds crazy.
I believe in this so passionately, I'm willing to be the guinea pig. That's why I named it Mutiny.
Yeah.
Is because I want the masses to come together. I don't want to fight against the system. I want to use the system for the benefit of my people. My goal is to create more millionaires eventually out of Mutiny than anyone else has ever created out of a single company. Now, that's a big goal. I might not be able to do it. But there's definitely been times where I'm like, this is crazy. Like maybe people don't even care. What if this really starts working and, the powers that be are like, we don't want this. We don't want a bunch of normal people becoming millionaires. So I think the idea for Mutiny, there were a couple key moments where things clicked. I think it happened over time. So I think there were certain experiences that I had that all kind of built up to this thinking or this decision. One of those was I would pitch investors. And often, I love our investors and I think investors are amazing and there's tons of great investors. But sometimes there's this a little bit of a gap because you have an investor who's made lots of money and you're asking him to write a big check. And sometimes they're kind of disconnected, right, from the reality of day-to-day life. Even Damon John from Shark Tank, he talks about this. That
really?
One of the biggest challenges after you sell a company is you're kind of now living in a world of private jets and really fancy hotels, and you're using products that most people don't even know exist. And so sometimes I would have that experience where I would pitch investors and they're like, I don't know if I like this pillow, or I don't know if I like this. And you're like, okay, but just because you don't get it doesn't necessarily mean that the average person won't, right? I've pitched a lot of people about Pillow Cube, and I'd have sometimes investors who are like, man, who would want to spend $100 on a pillow? And I'm like, see, that's funny because most consumers are saying that same thing, but they're like, man, $100 is really expensive. And the investor's like, why wouldn't you buy a $1,000 pillow? And that's just most people can't afford a $1,000 mattress. And so there's this disconnect. So I had that experience. I think another thing that I realized, a lot of these companies we've launched and also helped launch, a lot of them were started with a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo. And you have these people who believe in a company early on, who believe kind of before anyone else. And they're so passionate and they're so excited about the company and they have great feedback. And I remember we'd go through those experiences and I'd kind of be like, how do I get those people on board? Because they're so excited about the company. They're so passionate about what we're doing and they're believing before anyone. I'm like, this is so funny that the people who believed very first are not the people who get ownership. And so I think it was those two experiences. It was GameStop, seeing that happen.
What happened with GameStop for people who don't know?
Yeah, so GameStop was essentially there were a bunch of hedge funds who were shorting GameStop and kind of hoping it went under and trying to make it go under. And then a bunch of retail investors were like, no, we're not going to let that happen. And they started to essentially screw over the hedge funds by buying the stock. And so by buying the stock and raising the price, everyone who had shorted it got hosed. And it kind of turned GameStop around. I mean, GameStop's still doing well, it seems like. And so it was just a lot of those experiences that I kind of had over years where I saw, the power of crowdfunding, the power of consumers. And, that was always what I'm trying to do. At the end of the day, a consumer brand, the whole goal is to sell to consumers. And so I was always trying to figure out, how can I get those people more involved? How can I give them a piece of the pie? How do I get them to give me more feedback, better feedback? How do I get them to support me early on when I'm building something? And so these things just kind of kept building in my head over the years of how do I do this? And I tried a couple different ways to do it, and then eventually decided on the current model, which allowed us to essentially give equity or ownership to anyone.
So when did it click for you? Because it sounds like it came in phases, right?
Yeah.
To me, I'm thinking, why hasn't anybody done this yet?
Yeah.
What has been some of the issue that has caused people to not make that step or even be able to do it?
There's a lot of regulation, and there's good reasons for a lot of those regulations, but there's been a lot of regulation that have stopped the average consumer from having ownership in brands. So usually consumers have to wait until things go public, and then they can invest in it as a retail investor. So regulation has stopped it. There's been a lot of improvement over the last, I don't remember exactly, but probably 10, 15 years. So we had a law or a change that made it so you could do regulation crowdfunding, which allowed normal people to invest in brands directly with dollars. But it's still highly regulated. It's very difficult to do. It takes a lot of time. And I was like, this is just too slow. And so you're not getting the best brands. And I think that was for me always a signal that like the best brands are not turning to Reg CF to raise money.
Reg CF, for people who don't know.
Is regulation crowdfunding. It allows you to raise up to 235 million from the crowd. So you can go to any non-accredited investor and you can get them to invest in your brand. And so the best brands aren't doing that. It's too much regulation. It's too difficult. And so I kept looking for like, okay, I know that consumers can be so powerful. I saw GameStop. I saw these other movements. And I'm like, I know how powerful they can be. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to get consumers to be my customers. How do I involve them better? And so I just kept trying stuff. And so I'd try, Reg CF, and I was like, man, that's so freaking hard to do and way too regulated for the amount of money you're raising. I think it's crazy that we allow people in this country to bet $1,000 on Kalshi or on Polymarket.
Mm-hmm. But you can't
put $1,000 into a brand you believe in.
That's insane.
It's crazy.
What's the reasoning behind that? Is it just?
I do think it at its core, in many ways, it is an attempt to protect consumers.
If it goes under.
That's kind of like the positive way of looking at it. On the flip side, I also do think that there's some forces that don't want consumers to have access to early stage companies, because look how much money is made. There was a story just this week with SpaceX going public that the welder who became a millionaire. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw that. I mean, I know that Elon Musk is now worth he's like he's
first trillionaire.
The first trillionaire. That's insane.
Yeah. And one of his welders became a millionaire.
One of his welders in his company.
Yes, one of the early employees of SpaceX who was a welder became a millionaire from the IPO. And so you look at that and you're like, startups, one of the things I think that's awesome about startups and that a lot of startup founders are excited about is they want to create the most millionaires when their companies go public, right? Like, I think it was Google that created tens of thousands of millionaires.
Wow.
Who were just public. Normal employees once it went public. And that's amazing. And I want to bring that to everyday consumers. I don't think it's just employees who should benefit from a company going public. I think if you are a loyal supporter of a brand for years and you tell friends and family and you buy the product and you share it with others and you gift it and you post about it online and you do all these things, like, why are you not an equity holder? Why do you not have ownership in the company if you're doing all of that to support these young brands? And so that was the thing that I kept trying to figure out, like, how can we do that? How can we give that person ownership so that they can be a part of the growth of that company? Because if you can support a brand really early when it's not worth very much, let's say it's worth $5 million, and you can support it until it becomes worth $10 billion, like if you have a couple $1,000s worth of ownership, that can turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars worth of value.
Yeah.
And I think the people who believe from day one should get that.
So it sounds like you're taking this idea. I mean, most people that do private equity or private ownership of anything, most people don't even have access to that.
Oh, yeah.
And so this opens up the gate. What would you say are some of the other desires that you have underneath a lot of this? Like, what is it that you're really wanting to do for you, to make you, for this to be important to you?
Yeah, I think one of the core desires was I saw this kind of cycle that happens. So you get consumers to believe in your company when you're young, and you're trying to find who the people are who love your product, who care about what you're doing. You're trying to convince them to buy from you. And then once they buy from you, you go to investors and you say, hey, look at all these people who bought our product. You should invest in us. And then they invest in you. And then once they invest in you, you take that money and you go do a bunch of advertising on Facebook and Instagram and billboards. And by doing that advertising, you get more customers. And then you raise more money. And then you put more money into advertising. And I'm like, what if we just cut that cycle out and we just went to the consumers and said, why don't we give you ownership for believing in our product? Why don't we give you ownership for helping tell your friends and family? Why don't we give you ownership for giving us product feedback and doing all these things and cut them in? That doesn't mean necessarily that you don't need investors or you don't need advertising. You still will need that. But those earliest believers or the people who are the most passionate about brand, it can be an older brand too. But the people who are most passionate about that brand, why are they not included in that ownership? And I think that's like the core drive for me is I think by giving people skin in the game, people act differently. I've seen that with employees. I've seen that with myself. I've seen that with partners. Like when they have skin in the game, they act different. Why do we not do the same with our best customers? Why are we not going to our best customers and saying, you act like an owner? Like some of these Kickstarter people that we've gotten to back our Kickstarters over the years, like they'll email us and say, hey, I'm backer number 43. Here's a bunch of ideas that I have for the brand. They're like awesome stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you don't need, all you got, when you do a Kickstarter, you get a discount for pre-ordering a product by like a year. Like you don't have ownership, but you're acting like an owner. How do I give you some of that upside so that you do more of this? So you give me more feedback. So you give me more product ideas. And so that was like, I think that insight, that aha moment for me, that was like, these people are acting like owners, but they're not. When I tell a lot of like people in their 40s, 50s, 60s about Kickstarter who don't really understand Kickstarter, and I'm like, oh yeah, here's how Kickstarter works. And they're like, wait, you don't get ownership with a Kickstarter?
They say that.
Oh yeah. They think you get ownership. And so it's like,
it makes sense to them that you would.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, you don't. That's kind of how the culture is kind of shifted like that.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so they're like, why wouldn't you? You're ordering a year ahead of time a product and you're loaning money to this company for like 6 to 12 months basically.
Before you even get anything.
And then when you get it, you get the first version of the product that's not tested, that's still got some quirks. And so I think that's where I had just so many experiences where I was like, I think bringing consumers in as partners, as owners, and structuring that in a way that gives good expectations to both sides, I think is like a super powerful thing that I really believe in.
So let's go back before we go even deeper right here. I've never heard of it before. And you come up to somebody, you're at family barbecue, just tell them, boom, this is what Mutiny is. This is what I do.
If someone had never heard of Mutiny, the way I would describe it is it's a marketplace with a bunch of different brands, and you can choose which brands you want to back and support. And when you take action to back and support that brand in specific ways that they've asked for, we call those bounties. And when you do those bounties, you get ownership in the brand. So that might be a brand that has just launched in a new retailer, and they want to make sure that they get good sell-through. And so one of those bounties might be go to that store and buy the product and tell your friends or post about online that it's in that store. That might be something that brand needs. Or it might be, hey, we're doing a Kickstarter and we want you to go back the Kickstarter. We want you to back the Kickstarter. We want you to post about it. We want you to share it with 3 people who you think would like this product. And so as people do those specific actions to help the brand grow, they get ownership in that brand. So you get the product, and then on top of that, you get some ownership as well.
Okay.
So I think what it does is it allows you to use equity to incentivize outcomes. So you can go and say, hey, I want to have a really big Kickstarter, I'm going to give people equity for backing this Kickstarter on top of the product. They still get the product.
It's like the time starts there.
Yeah.
The value of that can increase. So like if I bought something for $100, I get in this case it would be $100 worth of owner's equity.
Yeah, yeah.
And then as the company grows, that money continues to grow, and I get a piece of that.
Yeah, and 5 years later, the company sells for 100 times what you bought it for, and you get a check for $10,000. And so because you believed early on and you helped that brand grow, you might get to the point where you get $1,000 worth of equity. Now, that's not a huge amount of equity. But if that company can 100x, which happens a lot, all of a sudden you have $100,000 worth of equity.
And a lot of that growth happens in that earlier stage.
Yes. Yeah, the real difference. This was something that I started to notice as well. There was a bit of an aha moment. I started to notice that companies, we saw this with SpaceX just recently, they're waiting longer and longer to go public. And so they're waiting to go, well, it's because going public is very difficult and heavily regulated, and so people are avoiding it for as long as possible. And so because of that, what's happening, like Microsoft, I think, went public at like a $300 million valuation. So when you take a company like that goes from a $300 million valuation to like a $3 trillion valuation.
Dang.
It's a huge
Before it's ever public.
Yes.
So if you put money in early.
Yes. And so with Microsoft, people were able to put money in early when it went public. But if you're waiting to go public until you're worth $1 trillion, now you're going from a multiple of 1,000x, 2,000x, 3,000x your money. Now we're getting to the point where people are going public so late that you can only 3, 4, or 5x your money in the same period of time.
Because that growth is already...
The growth is already gone. It's already happened. And so that's why I'm passionate about this, is because now in order to get that 3,000x, 5,000x, 10,000x, even 1,000x, 500x, you have to get in earlier. But because companies are going public so late, you can't. So as consumers, we should be figuring out, or we need to figure out, how do we get into companies earlier? That's why I started Mutiny, was because I wanted to give consumers and retail investors a way to get into brands really early, because that's where the value is. If you can see a brand go from being worth $5 million to $1 billion, that's a huge increase on your value.
Yeah.
And so again, if you have, I don't even know, is that
The amount.
5 million to $1 billion is what?
That's a lot.
20x or 200x? 200x on your return. And so if you get $1,000 in equity,
1,000 times
1,000 times 200, you have $200,000.
Wow.
And so I think that's where, like, we have to figure out a way to create that American dream again. And I think this is one way to do that, is to give people ownership in things and allow them to see that growth. Not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, can be an entrepreneur, but they should be getting something for believing in companies so early.
I want to go through like more of the technical side. What happens whenever I do a bounty?
When you go in and do a bounty, you go and perform some action. You go and say, hey, go buy this product in this store, or hey, share this online. You are given ownership in that brand, and that ownership has a value, and it essentially goes into like your ownership wallet. So now you have that ownership, and like you said, as the brand grows and the value of the company increases over time, that value goes up. So you do a bounty, and immediately as you complete it and we verify that it's been completed, you get that ownership transferred into your wallet.
So I'm just gonna call out like what probably a lot of people are probably thinking.
Yeah.
What's the catch? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It almost sounds crazy.
I think that this is the reason there isn't a catch, is because as I've built a lot of consumer brands, what I've learned is there's these key moments in a brand's growth kind of trajectory where you need certain things to happen. So a great example is you go into a store. You know, you launch in Walmart, and you're like, we got to sell the product through Walmart. Now, we have a great product. That's what Mutiny's job is we verify and validate that these companies have great products that there are things that consumers love, and it's going to be something that's going to add value to people's life. So we validate that. But then once it goes into that store, it's like, we know it's a great product. We need to make sure it sells. We need to make sure people know that it's in Walmart. We need to make sure that Walmart is excited about it, that they see that we have a following, that we have customers who care. And so all we're trying to do is provide a little extra value or a little incentive to get that customer to go in and buy it in the store, post about it online, because those things get the retailer excited. Like, oh, you guys sold a lot of product the first week. We're going to buy more product. We're going to give you better placement. We're going to give you better marketing assistance. And so you're trying to create momentum for these brands. And again, if it's a brand that has a great product, we're not trying to sell crap. We're trying to sell great products. But they still need help. There are a lot of great products that just for whatever reason, no one finds out about. They go into retail and maybe their packaging is a little bit off, or maybe they get put in a tough spot. We've had products that have done really well, but their first placement in a retailer was bad, and so they didn't sell. But then we move them to the right place and they sell like crazy. And so that's what we're trying to make sure happens, is you're going to your customers that are most loyal to you and saying, look, I need these things to happen in order to be successful. And if you help me make sure those things happen, I'm willing to bring you in as one of the owners in this company. And so that's why there's not a catch. It's, look, I need these things to happen, and I'm willing to give you an incentive for that to happen.
I mean, let's just put on the Senate hat, okay?
Yeah.
What is, like, I think I can just imagine people thinking, is this like some kind of MLM or something like that? What would you say to that?
So I think if someone was like, is this multi-level marketing? Yeah. Is this a pyramid scheme? No, because you're not recruiting people underneath you. You're not like going to friends and family and saying, I just need 3 friends to help me. And then on top of that, I think one of my criticisms of like a MLM or a network marketing company, often what they're doing is they're selling a product at a very, very, very high margin so that they can incentivize all the people in the line to help sell that product, right? Yeah. So they're taking a product that's $1 and they're selling it for $100, and then they're incentivizing all these different people in the network to sell it for them and push it on people. We're not doing that. We're not taking products and giving some huge, crazy sales amount to this network. What we're doing is we're trying to just kind of be the catalyst that gets it going. And then 99% of the sales and the growth will come from normal consumers who are not getting ownership. But this group who believes in these products, they get ownership because they're the catalyst, if that makes sense. They're the ones who get it going.
There you go.
They're the ones who get it started, or they're the ones who are believing it. I mean, we're talking to brands who are doing, hundreds of millions of dollars as well, who are like, hey, we need certain things to happen as well. And so, we're willing to give some ownership to our customers. We're willing to give ownership to some non-customers because we want them to do certain things and help us get to that next level. So it's an MLM is a very different structure, but also consumer brands do this all the time. We ask our customers to write reviews. We ask our customers to do specific things, and we usually, we'll tell them, hey, if you tell your friends about this, we'll give you a discount. If you tell your friends about this, we'll give you free product. And what we're saying is, why don't we give them ownership? Because they'll keep acting in the best interest of the brand once they have ownership.
What does ownership mean?
Yes. So what does ownership mean in a brand? It doesn't mean you get a vote on everything. Sometimes people think like, oh, now I get a vote on every decision. It's like, no, we still have a CEO who runs the company. They get to run the company. It doesn't mean you get a vote on everything. It doesn't mean that you get a vote on everything. It doesn't mean that now you get to talk to the CEO whenever you want. You're a shareholder just like you're a shareholder in a public company. What it means is you're now a shareholder in a private company. You're a shareholder in a company that has a lot more growth potential, has a lot more upside left. And so that's the difference. But I think sometimes people don't understand that. It doesn't mean that now you can get a job at that company. It just means you're a shareholder, that you have ownership in that company, and you get to be involved. I think another huge thing that's really exciting is you get to see behind the scenes. You get to see how companies grow, how companies make decisions, how companies are able to access, capital, and how they market themselves and how they develop products. So if you're someone who's excited by that, who kind of, loves Shark Tank and founder stories and hearing about how companies take off, I think that's another really exciting piece of this is you get to be in the know. That's what's really fun about being an owner and stuff. And I'm an advisor to a lot of companies. I have ownership in a bunch of companies. It's awesome to see behind the scenes of like, oh, that's how that guy does it. I'm going to change, some of the things I do when I invest and when I build because of the things I'm seeing there.
So there's some terms I think that are important for people to understand. A bit share. What's that? How would you define that? To someone who's never heard of that before, how do you define a bit share to someone who's opening up the app for the first time?
A bit share is what we just have named our shares inside of the app so that people can understand how we're dividing this up. The way we're essentially doing this legally is that you get ownership in the cooperative that has ownership in the brand. And so the bit share is essentially saying what percentage of the ownership that we have in that brand you get. And so when the company sells, the bit shares dictate where the money goes. Which is how shares work.
So how do you choose? Because at some point they'll run out, I'm assuming.
The brand chooses how many bit shares are granted for each action performed.
Okay.
And so when you perform a certain action, you're given a certain number of bit shares. And then when you perform all those actions, when the brand sells or they get profits or there's some kind of liquidity event, those bit shares determine how much of that you get. So the more you do, the more you get. And that's another thing I wanted to do with this is make it more meritocracy based. So it's like the people who help the most, who give the most value to the brand, get the most. And that's not always the case, with other things. And so it's great for the brand because we're delivering outcomes for them, right? Sometimes you get money from an investor, you put it into a marketing campaign or you pay an agency or you pay a partner and you don't actually get the outcome, right? You pay some company to do a Kickstarter for you. You pay them $200,000 or $100,000 and you launch the Kickstarter, it doesn't work. And so what we're trying to do is create outcomes for the brand. So you need more followers on Instagram. You need a piece of content or a marketing campaign to do well, to get shares, to get comments, to get likes. We are going to give you those outcomes, not just be paid to hopefully get the outcome. Because for the brand, they only grant us the equity or the ownership if we do the thing we say we'll do. So I think it's a really good relationship for everyone. It can also be very complementary with investors, where if investors are investing cash, Mutiny is a great way to come in and say, we'll help make sure that this brand is successful.
How do you decide what brands you want to put into the system, into the app?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
How are you deciding that?
What's our selection process?
Because I think the upside is going to be the quality of the brand.
Yes.
How are you making those decisions? How are you thinking about that?
One, is it an amazing product? Like, do we think it's a great product? Do their customers think it's a great product? Does it have very high reviews? Is it having an impact on people's life? So I think that's like one is it an amazing product? The next thing that we start looking at is like, how big is this market, right? Like, is this a company that could eventually sell for $50 million, $100 million, $1 billion, $10 billion? Like, we obviously want bigger outcomes because the bigger the outcome, the more value that our members get, right? Like if they come in at a $10 million valuation on a company, their $100, if that company is sold for $20 million, only turns into $200. If that company sells for $1 billion, it turns into a lot more. So that's something we're looking at is like, what's the potential outcome? This is what VCs, venture capitalists are doing every time they do a deal. They're looking at like, how big could this become? How big of a total addressable market, they call it TAM, how big is the TAM? So that's something we're looking at. We're looking at, does the product have a positive impact on people's lives? Like, is it something that they keep coming back to and they use frequently. We look at like, what is the growth trajectory? What's the unit economics? Can you make money at this? Do people want it? How many people want it? Like, is this a product that a lot of people need? Is this a product a couple people need? How disruptive is this? Is it super disruptive? Is it a whole new way of doing things? We like stuff that it's like, man, this is a whole new way of doing things. Is it something we can deliver on the promises to the customer? Can we deliver it to them through different channels? So, can we get this into retail? Can we do this through direct-to-consumer shipping? Can we sell it on Amazon? So we have a matrix that we've built out of like what we think has a lot of potential, and we're looking for companies that fit that.
I think the question that a lot of people naturally have with that is, especially if I'm a company looking to consider, why would I want to give you, Mutiny, part of my customer base? Why would I want to do that? Because I'm going to be giving up shares or bit shares that I could have in my own pocket. Why would I want to do that?
Well, I think it's the same reason why you raise money. It's like you need to get to the next level, and our proposal is that we can get you there faster than other methods. And so the reason you'd want to share is because you believe that, and you believe that there's a power to having your customers, but also other people who are not yet your customers as owners in the brand. I just deeply believe that people act different when they have ownership. And so, would you want 50,000 people to be owners in your brand, telling their friends and family and everyone they know about the power of this product or not? And if you don't, that's okay. But I think that is why it's exciting for brands, is getting a bunch of different owners. I mean, a lot of times, even in a lot of the startups we've built, I've seen that in the early days, often it's your investors, your advisors who are buying a lot of product, right? Like they're gifting cold case ice cream to all their friends. They're buying that as Christmas gifts. They're buying it for their parties. And so that whole idea is it's the same thing. Like, where are you spending your money? You should be getting ownership for spending that money. I think another thing that we want to do is include the members in deciding what brands we go after. We want to hear from the members, like, what brands do you believe in passionately? And let's try and go get them on the platform so that you can have ownership in them.
The initial brands are some of your own brands.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you address that? What's your reasoning behind that, the perspective of that? If anybody were to look at it and say, wait a second, Jay Davis, doesn't he own most of these brands in this portfolio?
My response would be, I believe in this so passionately, I'm willing to be the guinea pig, right? Like, I'm not just saying, brands should give equity and ownership to their customers. I'm putting my money where my mouth is and taking my ownership and giving it to my customers and saying, I believe passionately that this works. I'm going to prove it to you because I could just keep this. I could just say, never mind, I don't want to share. But I don't believe that that's what's best for the brand, and I don't believe it's what's best for consumers. So the reason why some of our early brands are my brands is because I believe so strongly in this model that I'm willing to be the test case. And if I think it'd be worse if I didn't put my own brands.
Yeah.
If I'm going to other brand owners and saying, hey, you should do this, and they're like, why are none of your brands on there? Well, I don't want to share.
I love that.
I think shouldn't be a negative. It should be a positive. I'm not doing this for any other reason than I strongly believe that this is what consumers need, and I strongly believe it will solve problems for brands.
You could do it a lot of different ways. You could do cashback. You could do what are some other like affiliate things like that?
Yeah.
You chose co-op. Why was that? Tell us about what a co-op is. Yeah. Why did you choose that specific model?
I chose the cooperative model, one, because it was invented a long time ago. So it was invented in 1752 by Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin came up with it so that he had started the first fire brigade in the U.S. So he built this fire brigade, essentially like a community firehouse that was putting out fires. And then he created a fire insurance company where the owners were the members of the insurance company. So the customers, the people paying into the insurance company, essentially were the owners of that company. And so one, it's a long-standing model. Farmers have used it. Credit unions have used it. REI is a co-op.
REI.
Yeah. There's
didn't know
there's a lot, and in other countries, there's tons of examples of cooperatives. But it was something created by Benjamin Franklin, which I think is really awesome. But it also has a lot of case law. There's a lot of history around cooperatives, but no one's really ever applied it in this way.
Nobody.
And done it. No.
Really?
And so because of that, I was like, okay, this is a really awesome way to include people, but it also, because it has this long history, it allowed us to stay outside of kind of SEC oversight and regulation in many ways, where we still have to be careful and we have to be fair to consumers and treat them well, but we didn't have to go through all the kind of hoops that you have to go through when you're doing direct investing. Because when people aren't directly investing into these brands, they're being granted ownership in return for action. And so that was why I love the cooperative model, is it allowed us to work faster, give better results, and incorporate consumers in a way that was actually exciting for them. There's been times, like an example that some people use is like the Green Bay Packers have a cooperative where like the fans own the team or own part of the team. The problem with that example is they actually don't own the team and they don't even have real ownership. They don't get a dividend. They don't get profits. If the team sells, they don't get any of the sale price.
So
all it is really a certificate that says you're a team owner. And so you pay money to be a team owner. There's no benefits.
It's like Costco.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You own it, but
not really.
Membership, but yeah, it's not really.
So I think the better example is like REI, but there's tons of cooperatives. America.
REI pays their
pays profits and dividends and stuff like that to the co-op members.
The people can they opt in. How do they opt in?
I think they just pay to be a member.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so this is where, like, even America in the early days, there were tons of cooperatives being used. Utah, ZCMI was a cooperative. There's cooperatives all over the place. There's still to this day tons of companies and tons of small businesses that are cooperatives. There are cooperatives that are employee owned. So like Publix is a great example.
I love Publix.
Where they are owned by their employees. I think it changes the approach that employees have. So I love that stuff. We're not trying to replace that in any way. We're not trying to, undo that. We love that, and we think there should be more of that. And we're just trying to add to it. We're trying to add more ways that the community can have ownership in the things that they support. And that's, I think this is the challenge for consumers is, how do I turn my $1,000 into $50,000? Well, you can go gamble, but there's a reason why gambling works for the gambling companies, and it's because they win more than 50% of the time. So you're going to lose at least 51% of the time. So that's hard to win. It's hard to create wealth there. I would rather go and say, I have my expendable income. I have my consumption that I'm doing. I want to use my consumption in a smart way. I want to support brands that I believe in. And by me supporting them, I'm helping increase their likelihood of success. I'm de-risking that company's, I'm de-risking what that company is doing because I'm helping support them and I'm helping them grow. And so that's why I'm so passionate about this. I'm like, if you have consumption that you're doing, we all consume things.
Yeah.
Why don't you use that consumption to hopefully, every once in a while, have a company that you supported write you a huge check?
So let's go to that. Let's just imagine one of these companies, boom, it explodes.
Yeah.
Many of them will, right? If we're talking visionary wise, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens? I invested, I put my, I decided to opt in.
Yes.
What happens from there?
I'll give you a real world example. There's a tech company who 7 years ago did a Kickstarter. They raised $750,000 from about 2,500 people. Each of those people put in $300 for the device. That company is about to go public at a $20 billion valuation. Wow. If they had put that $300 in at the beginning, they would now be getting a check when it goes public for somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 for that $300. So,
What?
yeah, that's the value of companies growing. So when that company was small and they did a Kickstarter before they really had done anything, if you'd put your $300 in for the product and gotten equity, $300 worth of ownership, when that company goes public this year at a $20 billion valuation, you would be getting a check for somewhere between 150, 200 grand. That's what I think consumers aren't realizing, right? Like Grunes is another great example. Grunes went from being worth $20 million, $30 million, 15. I don't know what their initial valuation was, but it was probably somewhere in that range, maybe 10. And they went from that, and 3 years later, they sold for $1.2 billion.
3 years.
3 years.
Wow.
What if you had gotten $1,000 worth of equity when it was worth $10 million, or even $100 worth of equity when it's worth $10 million? And then over those 3 years, you're a great customer, you're supporting, you're sharing, you're doing everything you can to make sure Grunes is successful. When they sell for $1.2 billion, what does your $100 turn into?
Take me
It's a
step
lot. It's $12,000.
12,000 after 3 years.
If for just $100 worth of
Just
ownership.
100.
Yeah. This is why the welder from SpaceX can become a millionaire, because when he was a welder for SpaceX, he got a stock option package when it was a young company, and those every year he was getting a couple $1,000, maybe $10,000 worth of equity, and he works for a couple years, and then when they go public, it turns into millions of dollars. I want customers to have that same opportunity that employees have, because employees are crucial, but so are customers. Without customers, companies go under.
Yeah.
Right?
So take me
And so it's the same idea.
So take me step by step. How does it work in Mutiny? One of the companies does well, goes public. What does it look like?
So you get your bit shares that assign how much of that ownership.
This is a legal thing. Like you're obligated to give it to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the company sells, and the money flows into the cooperative. And then depending on how many bit shares each person has, based on what they did to help the company grow, that money is split up. So if 10% of the total ownership of the company is owned by the Mutiny Cooperative, and it's $1 billion sale, $100 million gets split up amongst the Mutiny members.
This is something I think is important to explain. They will offer to Mutiny a percentage of the company.
Yes.
And so it's not all to each their own. You can just get as much of the company you want. There's only a certain amount that goes into the cooperative, and then Mutiny divides that up based on the bounties.
Yes. Based on what people are doing.
Based on what people are doing.
Yep.
And then they can run out, correct?
Yes. Yeah, once it's gone, it's gone. And then like a funding round, that brand can come back and say, hey, we want more of that.
Exactly.
We'll give you more equity, more ownership in return for you doing this, this, and this. And so the whole idea is you want to go do those bounties, because once they're gone, once they've been performed, once people have done those bounties, they're done. And those people get ownership, and then you move on to another brand, you go do stuff for other brands. So if I were a Mutiny member, which I am, I'm choosing which brands, like, hey, I like that brand. I like what they're doing. I love their product, or I'm going to try their product. I think what they're doing is cool. I want to support these 3 or 4 brands, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure they're successful. And it becomes a really fun game. Like, you're going into the store and you're like, I'm going to go find where they are in the store. I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to create a post. I'm going to buy the product. I'm going to tell my friends and family about it. It again goes back to, why do investors often become your best customers? Because
they care about it.
They care about the brand. They want the brand to succeed.
So let's go into this. I think this is the question that's on everybody's mind. Okay, so let's say I do the bounty, I do go forward, and the company dies.
Yeah.
I think that's what's on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
What happens there?
I mean, like any other company, you lose your ownership in that brand. If a company just goes under. Now, this is also why we've associated it with action and associated it with like, hopefully you're getting product out of this. So if you go into the store, you buy, ice cream, you get to eat the ice cream.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you're not like, it's not like you put $1,000 investment into the brand and it's just gone. It's, I bought products, I shared, I was passionate. Sometimes things don't work. That will happen. But again, what the goal of Mutiny is to de-risk these companies for the member. Like, hey, if all of us believe in this company, I mean, this is GameStop.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a bunch of hedge funds who are like, let's short this, and then if we can destroy the company, we'll make a ton of money. And all these GameStop people are like, screw that. We're not going to let you do that. And so they put their money where their mouth is and they believe in the company, they invest in the company, and the shorts don't work. The hedge funds go broke and GameStop survives. And why does that happen? It's because the masses coordinated. The masses coordinated and they said, I think this company should win. We're trying to do the same thing with our companies that are on our platform.
Well, you're making a good point right now that I think is important to remember. It's that this is a group thing. It happens better with the masses, not just because it could be easy to think, oh, I'm going to get mine, but it has to be the group. It has to be everyone. You know what I mean? That's really where it actually takes off the best.
Yeah. It's why I named it Mutiny.
Yeah.
Is because I want the masses to come together.
Yeah.
I want the masses to come together and say, hey, we can be mad that there's billionaires in the world. We can be mad that Elon's a trillionaire. Or we can, as a group, play the game better, right? Like, we can keep trying to fight against the system. I don't want to fight against the system. I want to use the system for the benefit of my people, of the people I have decided to join forces with. And so the idea is, let's join forces as a group and let's go make sure that we get a piece of the action. And so I think that's what's so powerful is, I think people are frustrated. I feel like they feel like the game's rigged.
Yeah.
All these billionaires keep getting richer. We don't get richer. And it's like, okay, so join Mutiny and let's go build the companies that we have ownership in. Let's make sure our companies win by supporting them, by backing them, by helping them get out there. And then let's win on the upside, right? Like let's be able to take our $1,000, and if that $1,000 can turn into 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, and you do that enough times, like my goal is to create more millionaires eventually out of Mutiny than anyone else has ever created out of a single company. Now, that's a big goal. It's a lofty goal. I might not be able to do it, but that's my goal that I want to hit. I want to do that because I think when all of us win together, people will see the power of that. Like, we don't have to fight against each other. We can work together as a team, and we can all win. And that doesn't mean we have to like go take money away from the billionaires. Let's just go figure out a way that we get to play the game better. We get into the game more. And I think that's much more productive than trying to like destroy the system or overthrow the system.
Yeah. So I want to go maybe a little bit on the, I don't want to call it the darker side, but did you ever get to a point where you didn't think this was going to work? That you wanted to say like, you know what? Because this is kind of complicated. This is pretty nuanced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you ever want to just, forget this and this isn't working?
Oh yeah, all the time. Like I think I've been thinking about this for so long and trying to figure it out that there's definitely been times where I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like maybe people don't even care. And then there's been like experiences that I've had where I've seen that people do care.
But what's the moment where like it was pushback? What's the kind of pushback that you've gotten from this? Because I'm just imagining like, is there going to be some entity where they can change the law where this isn't possible because it will benefit a lot of people, whatever it is that people think, and like everybody's against this? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you worry about that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I definitely have that like question of like, what if this really starts working and, the powers that be are like, we don't want this. We don't want a bunch of normal people becoming millionaires. This is our game that we like. I mean, that's the more cynical side. I think there's also part of me that is like, yeah, what if people are, don't believe in it? What if it doesn't get traction? Like there's always that fear, but I think what's like pushed me is seeing customers who are so passionate and they believe so much in what we're doing And I'm like, I got to figure out how to incentivize or give them value and reward for what they've done. Like, I think that's what like has driven me, is seeing these people who have sent me messages on LinkedIn and said, hey man, like your product has literally changed my life. And I'm like, man, how do I give that person ownership? How do I get them on my team? Because that like really is like a huge impactful thing for me. I have people who with Pillow Cube have said like this saved, my sleep. Like I've been sleeping so bad. I didn't feel happy. I felt depressed. I couldn't sleep. And all of a sudden they're getting sleep and they're like the impact that has is huge. And so that drives me for like, we got to figure out a way to make this work. And then also seeing people frustrated that I think a lot of people feel like the game is unfair. That it's like, hey, there's no way for me to break into this. And so that's also driven me. I'm like, I want it to be more fair for my children. I want it to be fair for others, people that I care about, their children. And so I think capitalism is best when more people benefit from it. Cool. And that's what I want. I want more people to be benefiting and feel like, because I think it already has benefited so many lives. But I think our goal should be to have even more people benefit from it.
What's been the most, I don't want to say a discouraging thing that someone said to you? Because whenever you pitch it to people or explain it to people, or some people are like, yeah, that's like, what's something that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, people will say that. There's people, I think I've been an entrepreneur long enough that I just don't care. Like when people are like, that's a dumb idea, I'm like, sweet.
They say that to you?
Yeah. I think I've learned how to get true reactions out of people. One of the things I do is kind of preface with when I tell people something like, hey, I just want your true reaction. I don't care. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I just want to know. And so you get people who are like, that's stupid. Why would anyone want to own a company? And I'm like, well, I mean, our entire economy is built on the stock market. I think people do want to own stuff. So yeah, I mean, if you don't want to own smaller companies or private companies, like that's fine. But that's, there's definitely people. And I think that's okay. Like I've learned as an entrepreneur, you're not trying to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
You're trying to find who wants your product, and you're wanting to find them as quickly as possible. Your goal is not to please everyone. And if you do that, you're going to waste a lot of time and energy and money. And so, yeah, there's definitely been times where people are like, that's just not for me. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then I meet people who are like, dude, this is amazing. I love it. How do I get involved? How do I become a customer? How do I, and those people, it's like, okay, that's what keeps me moving forward.
I just want to address this. I think it's important. Spirit 2.0, I think that some people might have questions about that.
Yeah.
Like they might know that in the past that there was an opportunity there.
Yeah.
What happened with that? What was it that caused that to go sour? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it was like, honestly, identity politics. It was like, these are white guys who are conservative. We don't want them part of our movement. I think also there was a part of that movement who thinks that cooperatives are like a socialistic or communistic things. That's not true. Cooperatives are not a communist movement. Like
nobody's forcing you.
Yeah, well, and even more, like communism is the government owning the means of production, and then redistributing based on needs. That is not what a cooperative is. Cooperative is community ownership. The community, the masses, anyone can have ownership. That's capitalism. Capitalism is the whole idea that anyone can own companies.
Yeah.
You can start your own company. America was built on entrepreneurship. And so I think that was like a difference that like people didn't understand. And honestly, I think it was just that Hunter was kind of worried about this, like, oh, this, very loud minority is mad about who you guys are.
We said they didn't vet. I didn't vet them properly.
Yeah, he didn't know that some of us are conservative. I think it's stupid.
Oh, I see.
Like I think this is like my feeling is every company has a variety of opinions. Like diversity, great diversity is a lot of different types of diversity. Diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds, diversity of race, diversity of people. Like, that's great diversity. But when you start to say like, oh, I only want some types of diversity, I don't want this kind of person here. We don't want this whole, anyone who's conservative, we don't want in our group. It's like, that's not very diverse. And so I think that's what it was, is I didn't vet to make sure they had the exact same political ideology. Now, what was interesting was there were a lot of people in that movement who were like, whoa, I'm conservative. So now we're kicking people out because they're conservative.
Interesting.
And so I think that's the danger of like, hey, look, we're not a political entity. We are trying to help give everyone access to ownership in companies. That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be a political entity. And so I think that that's very dangerous when you're doing something in business, in the business world, and you start thinking that you're a political entity.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think it's just fake too.
Values.
Like,
But values.
yeah.
Values do matter.
So one other thing that I would add
Yeah.
around that, I think another thing with like the Spirit 2.0 movement, what's funny is now people are frustrated because it's like, oh, non-accredited investors can't be involved in the first phase. And the irony is that was what Mutiny solves. Like, we make it so non-accredited investors can get ownership. And because some very small minority was like, we don't want you as part of this, now they can't have that because we're the only ones who figured that out. And so I think this is where, like, this is our mission, is to help everyone have access, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, what race you are, whatever identity you have. We want anyone to have access to owning companies. And that's our mission. And I think that that's like the irony of that whole situation was it was like, oh, we don't like these people. Well, we're the ones trying to give everyone access. That's our goal. And so be careful who you kick out of your group. So
Years from now, people will join this or not, or whatever it may be.
yeah.
What would you hope that you'll see whenever you look back and decided to create this company? How would you answer the question of why would you have been glad to have created it?
I think if there's people who are positively impacted, who get to be involved in cool companies, they get some financial upside, they get to learn, they get to grow. I think if we can accomplish that, we succeeded.